on the happenings around the globe. Stay focused on the fact today.
This is the international news on Atlantic Television Network. First, the headlines. From Malawi, soldiers search for missing vice president, others after aircraft crashes. From Haiti, Prime Minister condemns gang killings of police officers. From Thailand, court cases heighten political uncertainty, investors flee stock market. From Switzerland, Israeli operations to amount to war crimes, UN warns. From Australia, Prime Minister Anthony Albanese accuses Dutton of fear of future.
People into the country illegally. That is amazing.
Honorable
you human trafficker.
Honorable
From the line across the ocean to the land beyond the mountains, through the Sahara, we bring on-spot news, live analysis, expert discussions on trending stories in politics, business, socio-economy, sports, and documentary.
Soldiers are searching mountainous forests in northern Malawi after an aircraft carrying Vice President Salus Chilima and 9 others went missing on Monday. The plane carrying Chilima, former First Lady Shanil Zimbiri, and 8 others left the capital Lilongwe at 9:17 a.m. and had been expected to land 45 minutes later at Zuzu International Airport, about 370 kilometers to the north. President Lazarus Chakwera said in an address broadcast live on Monday night, that air traffic control in Mzuzu had told the pilots not to attempt a landing and to turn around because of bad weather and poor visibility. Air traffic control lost contact with the aircraft and it disappeared from the radar a short time later, he said. I know this is a heartbreaking situation. I know we are all frightened and concerned. I am too concerned, Chakwera said, but I want bearing no available resource to find that plane, and I am holding on to every fiber of hope that we will find survivors. Chakwera said the US, UK, Norway and Israel had offered assistance in the search operation and had provided specialized technologies that the president hoped would help find the plane sooner. The president said the search would continue through the night and that authorities had used telecommunications towers to track the last known position of the plane to within a 10-kilometer radius of one of the plantations that surround Mzuzu, which lies in an area dominated by the Via mountain range. I have given strict orders that the operation should continue until the plane is found, Chakwera said. The incident meant the president cancelled a planned visit to the Bahamas. Kenya has reached a staff-level agreement with the International Monetary Fund on Tuesday, the organization said, paving the way for the disbursement of about $976 million. The fund said in a statement that if its executive board approves a second review of Kenya's resilience and sustainability facility, it would have immediate access to $120 million. The lender also urged the East African nation to adjust its 2024-25 budget to include more revenue-raising measures as a worsening in the primary fiscal balance in the previous financial year, and a tax collection shortfall was expected to keep domestic borrowing needs high. Although Kenya has been facing liquidity challenges since 2022, it managed to sell a new $1.5 billion Eurobond from international markets in February, albeit at a steep price, to partly buy back another Eurobond that is maturing in June. The issuance assuaged investor concerns about a potential default restored foreign investors' confidence in the economy and caused the shilling currency to strengthen against the dollar. The fund said fiscal adjustments for 2024-25 could remedy the situation. Authorities have taken decisive steps towards fiscal consolidation by introducing several measures in the context of the draft 2024-25 budget and the 2024 finance bill, it added. The finance minister is due to present the 2024-25 budget to Parliament on Thursday. Parliament approved overall spending for the year at 4 trillion shillings, up from the 3.75 trillion shillings the minister presented last June for the 2023-24 year. That budget was later adjusted to 3.85 trillion shillings. The 2024-25 budget will be accompanied by the Finance Bill 2024, a separate law outlining revenue-raising proposals, which some critics say some could cripple sectors including financial services, transport, manufacturing and retail. Kenya's current IMF deal, which is for a total of $3.6 billion, was agreed in April 2021. The current review is the 7th under the program. Last week, the central bank governor said Kenya will use part of $1.2 billion World Bank budget support loan to make a payment of roughly $500 million on a Eurobond maturing this month. Haiti's new prime minister on Monday condemned the gang killings of 3 police officers on a patrol in part of the capital controlled by gang leader Jimmy Barbecue Cherizier. A group of armed men working on the Cherizier ambushed a patrol from the police anti-gang unit in the Delmas 18 neighborhood on Sunday and set it on fire, police in the Caribbean country said. 2 officers were killed on site and 2 were evacuated by reinforcement, though one of them later died at the hospital. Prime Minister Gary Conille promised state aid for the victims' families. Conille was sworn in this month and has yet to install his cabinet after taking power nearly 3 months after his predecessor, Ariel Henry, tendered his resignation. This barbaric act is a direct attack on security and on stability of the nation, Conille said in a video address. I send heartfelt condolences to the family of these officers who are gone along with their colleagues and friends. He spoke after being briefly hospitalized on Saturday for what his office called a slight illness. Police union Sina Poha, however, said words were not enough and demanded the victims' bodies be returned. Unverified videos on social media, apparently filmed by gang members, appear to show footage of the charged truck and captured firearms. Gang leader Cherizier later shared a video on social media in which he said police officers had gone rogue and come to kill people in Lower Delmas. He also challenged police to recover the seized firearms if they can. Kenyan President William Ruto on Sunday said that a long-awaited deployment of Kenyan police officers set to lead a UN-sanctioned international force to support Haitian police should arrive in 1 or 2 weeks, African reported. It remains unclear when the rest of the force, with troops from Benin, Chad, Bangladesh and the Caribbean, would land. Sina Poha warned at the start of this year of a rapidly shrinking and under-resourced police body. The international force was initially requested by Haiti's former government in 2022 but has faced extended delays. Gangs have since grown their control over the capital, pushing hundreds of thousands from their homes and millions into hunger. A planned hike in the capital gains tax for the wealthiest will help keep Canada's borrowing low and fund social programs, Finance Minister Chrystia Freeland said on Monday. We know now is the time to invest in Canada and Canadians, Freeland told a press conference. The responsible way to pay for those investments is to ask those at the top to contribute a little bit of money. Freeland in April reviewed a new tax on the wealthy to bring in 20 billion Canadian dollars over 5 years to help fund an ambitious housing program that aims to resolve a crisis that has shrunk Prime Minister Justin Trudeau's approval ratings. The additional dollars are also slated to help fund other expensive social programs on healthcare, dental care and drugs. Canada could finance these critical investments by taking on more debt that would place an unfair burden on younger generations, Freeland said. Canada is increasing its annual spending by over a quarter to 608.7 billion Canadian dollars until 2028-29, according to the budget document, which includes over 57 billion Canadian dollars of new spending that has been heavily criticized by The Economist due to the government's rising debt levels and debt servicing costs. The plan to tax people with capital gains of more than 250,000 Canadian dollars at a rate of 66.7% on the excess amount, up from 50% previously, has been criticized by economists and businesses who say it will drive investors to the neighboring U.S. It is likely to be implemented by June 25th and will be tabled in Parliament on Monday. The Canadian government, under pressure to review the names of legislators who allegedly acted as agents for other nations on Monday, bowed to opposition demands to refer the matter to a special inquiry. Prime Minister Justin Trudeau has been on the defensive since a committee of parliamentarians that focuses on security matters last week said some elected officials had been witting or semi-witting participants in foreign interference operations, including divulging secrets to other countries. The Liberal government says naming legislators would break the law, adding it would be up to police to investigate. The committee, which was citing sensitive information from Canada's secret services, said it could not identify the legislators or the political party to which they belonged. Opposition legislators on Monday started debating a motion that proposes the matter to be turned over to an independent inquiry that is already looking into foreign interference. Public Safety Minister Dominic LeBlanc said he agreed with the proposal, given that the inquiry already had access to the documents cited by the Committee of Legislators. We think that is a responsible way to proceed, not simply standing up and illegally announcing a list of names, he told the House of Commons elected lower chamber. He did not commit to naming names. The official position Conservatives, who polls show are set for an easy win in a national election that must have held by late October 2025, accused Trudeau of taking a lax approach to security. Certain members of this House acted in the best interest of hostile foreign regimes interfering in Canada's democracy. This is a disgusting betrayal of Canadians who elected us, party legislator Jaj Raj Singh Halan told the House on Monday. In their report last week, the Committee of Parliamentarians said India and China were the main foreign threats to Canada's democratic institutions. The independent inquiry, in an interim report last month, announced it had found evidence of foreign interference in Canada's last two federal elections, but said the results of the votes were not affected and the electoral system was robust. Chiquita Brands International must pay $38.3 million in damages to the families of 8 Colombian men killed by a paramilitary group in that country, a Florida jury said on Monday. Chiquita in 2007 was ordered by a U.S. court to pay a $25 million fine to settle criminal charges that it did business with the United Self-Defense Forces of Colombia paramilitary group. Chiquita pled guilty in that case to paying protection money from 2001 to 2004, which it said it did in order to protect employees. The jury in the civil case before the United States District Court Southern District of Florida said the verdict on Monday that Chiquita knowingly provided substantial assistance to the AUC in the form of cash payment or other means of support to a degree sufficient to create a foreseeable risk of harm. The men were killed by the AUC, the jury said, and Chiquita did not approve its support for the AUC was the result of impending harm to the company or its employees. The verdict does not bring back the husbands and sons who were killed, but it sets the record straight and places accountability for funding terrorism where it belongs. At Chiquita's doorstep, said Agnieszka Friesman, a lawyer at a law firm Cohen, Milston, Sellers and Toll, who represented the plaintiffs, said in a statement. Chiquita did not immediately respond to a request for comment. Mexican President-elect Claudia Sheinbaum said on Monday she would encourage broad discussions over proposed constitutional reforms, including a judicial overhaul that has spooked markets before the next congressional session kicks off. The judicial reform would replace an appointed Supreme Court with popularly elected judges, as well as for some lower courts, which critics allege would fundamentally alter the balance of power in Mexico. Sheinbaum, speaking in a press conference following a meeting with outgoing President Andres Manuel Lopez Obrador, said the reform would be among the first that could be passed, along with some boosted social benefits. She added she did not believe the proposed reforms would impact the peso, which tumbled following her election win earlier this month. As Sheinbaum was speaking, however, the peso weakened by nearly 2% to around 18.55 per dollar by US dollar in international trading. With the current scenario of uncertainty, an exchange rate of 20 pesos per dollar for this year can't be ruled out, analyst Gabriela Sila from Banco Bay said on X. Analysts believe those extra votes can likely be secured through negotiation. While the newly elected Congress will take office at the beginning of September, Sheinbaum will not be inaugurated until a month later, which could give Lopez Obrador and lawmakers a window to try to enact the reforms. The jury began deliberations on Monday in the case of Hunter Biden, the U.S. president's son, accused of lying about his use of illegal drugs when he bought a handgun in 2018. The 12 jurors deliberated for about an hour after hearing closing arguments. They will resume at 9 a.m. ET on Tuesday. A court official said, "We ask you to find the law applies equally to this defendant as it would to anyone else," President Prosecutor Derek Hines told the jury as the first criminal trial of a sitting president reached its final phase. When he chose to lie and buy a gun, he violated the law. "We ask you return the only verdict supported by the evidence, guilty," Hines said. Biden, 54, the son of President Joe Biden, has pleaded not guilty to felony charges that include lying about his addiction when he filed out a government screening document for a Colt Cobra revolver and illegally possessing the weapon for 11 days. Defense attorney Abby Lowell compared the government's case to the work of a magician who focuses attention on drug use from months or years before the gun purchase to create the illusion, all those years before he walked into Starkware shooters and all those years after, Lowell told jurors, referring to the gun store where he made the purchase. U.S. District Judge Mayelen Noriega instructed jurors to be impartial. "You have to decide the case based on the evidence," she told them. Over 4 days of testimony last week, prosecutors offered an intimate view of the younger Biden's years of struggle with alcohol and crack cocaine abuse, which prosecutors say illegally preclude him from buying a gun. In the prosecution's closing argument, a government attorney said common sense understanding of the grim testimony of Hunter Biden's constant drug use filled in any gaps in evidence about his behavior around the time of the gun purchase. "It was personal, and it was ugly, and it was overwhelming," federal prosecutor Leo Weiss told the jury, referring to the testimony of Hunter Biden's drug use, but it was also necessary. Former Donald Trump lawyer Rudy Giuliani said on Monday that he posted a $10,000 bond in Arizona on charges he tried to subvert the 2020 election results in the state. Giuliani is scheduled to begin in October. Giuliani is one of 18 defendants in the case brought by Arizona's Democratic Attorney General Chris Myers. Giuliani and the other defendants are facing conspiracy, fraud, and forgery charges over their efforts to assemble a slate of electors from Arizona pledged to support Trump, a bid to undermine certification of the 2020 election. Trump, a Republican who will face off against Biden in the November presidential election, continues to falsely claim that his defeat was the result of fraud. Conservative U.S. Supreme Court Justice Samuel Alito, in a secret recording made public on Monday by a liberal activist, can be heard agreeing with the sentiment that the U.S. should return to a place of godliness. A spokesperson for the Supreme Court declined to comment. A Rolling Stone spokesperson did not respond to a request for comment. In response to questions from Press, Winter said in an email that she attended the June 3rd Supreme Court Historical Society's annual dinner as a dues-paying member, posed as a conservative Christian, and approached Alito and asked him about how the country would become less politically polarized before she turned to religion. In the recording, she said, "I think that the solution really is like winning the moral argument. Like people in this country who believe in God have got to keep fighting for that to return our country to a place of godliness." A voice that sounded like Alito's responded, "Well, I agree with you, I agree with you." When asked about the current divide in American politics, the voice that sounded like Alito's responded, "One side or the other, don't know. I mean, there can be a way of working, a way of living together peacefully, but it is difficult, you know, because there are differences on fundamental things that really can't be compromised. They really can't be compromised, so it is not like you are going to split the difference." A Chinese man arrested after his speedboat illegally entered a Taipei harbor is a former Navy captain who could have been probing the island's defenses, senior Taiwanese officials said on Tuesday. Taiwan's Coast Guard arrested the man on Sunday at the coastal neighborhood of Tamsui after his boat entered a river that leads into Taipei, an incident that happened amid ongoing tensions between Taiwan and China. China views the democratically governed island as its own territory, a claim Taipei rejects. Quan Biling, head of Taiwan's Ocean Affairs Council, which runs the Coast Guard, told reporters at Parliament that the man was quite refined and well presented and had previously served as a Chinese Navy captain. Over the past year or so, there have been 18 similar cases, mostly involving Taiwan-controlled islands that sit next to the Chinese coast, Quan said. "Looking at the accumulated cases in the past, we can't rule out that this is a test," she said, referring to Taiwan's abilities to spot such vessels. Neither China's Taiwan Affairs Office nor its Defense Ministry immediately responded to requests for comment. Taiwan Defense Minister Wellington Koo, also speaking to reporters at Parliament, said the boat incident could be another example of China's grey zone tactics against the island. Taiwan has complained in recent years that China has been using so-called grey zone warfare designed to exhaust the foe by irregular tactics without resorting to open combat, such as floating surveillance balloons over the island. "These grey zone tactics have always existed," Koo said. "We must always maintain our vigilance and cannot rule out the possibility of taking countermeasures." In March, 2 Taiwanese fishermen strayed into Chinese waters near the Taiwan-controlled Kinmen Islands, which sit next to China's coast. One Taiwanese military officer remains in detention in China, while the other was released soon after. 4 American educators from a small Iowa university were injured in a stabbing attack in a public park in northeast China's Jilin province on Monday, according to Chinese and U.S. government officials. China's foreign ministry on Tuesday said the incident was a random attack and that it would not affect normal people-to-people exchanges between China and the United States. Iowa Representative Adam Zabner said his brother was one of the victims from Cornell College in Iowa. "My brother David Zabner was wounded in the arm during a stabbing attack while visiting a temple in Jilin City, China," he said. "I spoke to David. He is recovering from his injuries and doing well. My family is incredibly grateful that David survived this attack." The group had been visiting a temple in Bishan Park when they were attacked by a man with a knife, he added. The police have preliminarily judged that this was a random incident, but an investigation is ongoing. China's foreign ministry spokesperson Lin Jian told reporters at a daily briefing on Tuesday. All the injured individuals were immediately taken to the hospital and were given appropriate critical care. No one's life is in danger, Lin said. China's foreign ministry said it would continue taking effective measures to ensure the safety of foreigners in China. A video of people lying on the ground in a park covered in blood was circulating on X on Monday, though no trace of the images could be found on Chinese social media. A few remaining posts about the incident on the Chinese social media platform Weibo questioned widespread censorship of the incident in official media. Do they really think that censoring domestic discussion of the incident impacts whether foreigners choose to visit China or not? Posted one Weibo user. Bangladesh has turned into a one-party state as the ruling party stamps out political competition. Nobel Peace Laureate Muhammad Yunus, a pioneer of the global microcredit movement, said in an interview an election in January won Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina a fourth straight term, but it was boycotted by the main opposition party, whose top leaders were either jailed or in exile ahead of the poll. Yunus, who helped to lift millions from poverty by providing tiny loans of sums less than $100 to the rural poor, angered Hasina with a 2007 plan to set up a political party. The 2006 Nobel laureate accused Hasina's ruling Awami League party of being involved in rampant corruption, saying Bangladesh lacked a genuine political opposition. Bangladesh doesn't have any politics left, Yunus, 83, said last week in his office in Dhaka, the capital. There is only one party which is active and occupies everything, does everything, gets to the elections in their way. The Philippines has long clashed with China over the South China Sea, but the country's proximity to Taiwan also puts it in China's area of interest. Marcos told troops at a military camp in Isabela province in northern Cagayan region facing Taiwan. China claims democratically governed Taiwan as its own territory and has never renounced the use of force to bring the island under its control. Taiwan strongly objects to China's sovereignty claims and says only the island's people can decide their future. Taiwan is home to more than 150,000 Filipinos. The external threat now has become more pronounced, has become more worrisome, and that is why we have to prepare, Marcos told the troops on Monday in a speech shared by the presidential palace on Tuesday. Last year, Marcos gave U.S. forces access to almost double the number of military bases at a time of concern over increased Chinese activities in the South China Sea and tension over Taiwan. Korea's across the military demarcation line, Seoul's Joint Chiefs of Staff said on Tuesday. GACS spokesperson Colonel Lee Sung-jun said the military did not consider the breach to be intentional as the area was densely forested, obscuring border markings or any road. They headed north immediately after our military's warning broadcast and warning shots, and there were no unusual movements, he told a loudspeaker broadcast, calling Pyongyang's action base and dangerous. The South Korean military has previously fired warning shots at North Korean soldiers crossing the border, but most such incidents took place around the maritime border, which
I don't get a lot. Boy, they won't booga me small. They say, man, give them bribe. I say, nothing. Okay, now, we'll go block later. You remember that contract we will do that time now? They don't pay.
But first, you see the house rent with the old things. We go first call caretaker, take the money, slap him.
Beg, see, you know, say I get annual levy why they pay for club. Where me and boys they shark beer in our house, I could pay that one. You remember say me and tell you I go buy you motor. I go buy now.
Okay, they pay you money now. We don't they beg caretaker? We would they beg landlord, old man, and they agree give us time. Money can't come now. You won't divert time. You said na corruption. Corruption, not in my house and not in my country.
Sure?
Sure.
Corruption, not in my country. This message is brought to you by the Akin Fadehi Foundation, the MacArthur Foundation,
and with broadcast support from Atlantic Television Network.
Corruption, not in my country.
Kasali, I hope so my car don't ready. I get interview in 30 minutes.
Guy, you not ready. I just the last minute instruction where you give me yesterday. Now in the cause more delay.
Which instruction?
Maybe now you say make I change the meter, make you not read it again.
Which time I make you change meter? Oh, Kasali, why you do like they like this now? You don't get sense. You don't read the text message. Nobody I want send them to. Now Kasali, my electrician, make it come house, call me do my meter so that you don't go to read again. You know electrician?
The electrician.
Yes, now.
So you call Kasali electrician, make it come help you adjust your meter, make it for no read again, Abi. So you said you want join people where be say they no one. odometer.
For what thing are you for come out for home my motor? I beg you identify for me.
Okay. Oh. Now don't do something we corrupt. And the something come backfire. Now go come they find how to dodge them.
What you talk?
Eh? They greet you.
This message is brought to you by the Akin Fadehi Foundation, the MacArthur Foundation,
and with broadcast support from Atlantic Television Network.
From the line across the ocean to the land beyond the mountains, through the Sahara, we bring on-the-spot news, live analysis, expert discussions on trending stories in politics, business, social economy, sports, and documentaries. So catch all the updates on the happenings around the globe. Stay focused on the fact today, only on ATN.
Welcome back. This is the international news on Atlantic Television Network. Now to the rest of our stories. The second largest economy and sent investors fleeing its stock market. The Constitutional Court on Wednesday will take up a case that could potentially dissolve the progressive political party that won last year's closely contested general election, besides considering another that could lead to the dismissal of Prime Minister Srettha Thavisin in another case next week. Influential former Prime Minister Thaksin Shinawatra will be formally indicted for allegedly insulting the monarchy. The outcome of the cases could leave Thai politics in disarray, raising tensions between the powerful conservative royalist camp and their rivals, a pattern that has dogged the political landscape for decades, said analyst Thitinan Pangsudrak. They can keep out and kick out of office holders, but they cannot take office themselves because they cannot win the election, said Thititan, who teaches at Bangkok's Chulalongkorn University, referring to the conservative establishment. I think certainly we are seeing another round of turmoil. The looming political cases sent Thailand's main stock index down to its lowest level in 3.5 years. On Monday, the BOSS has fallen 6.9% so far this year, making it Asia's worst performing market. Only 5 out of the 30 cabinet seats were given to the allies in ministries including civil aviation, food processing, steel, animal husbandry, and small and medium enterprises. The BJP won 240 of the 543 seats in the lower house of parliament in the election. The alliance it leads won a total of 293 seats, crossing the majority mark of 272 seats. We believe that the distribution of seats display continuity at its best and equitable treatment of allies, which is a big plus, Philip Capital analyst Anjali Verma wrote in a note. Aside from the Hindu nationalist BJP, the two main constituents of the ruling National Democratic Alliance are two regional parties focused on getting funds for their states, Andhra Pradesh in the south and Bihar the east. Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi's government has no plan to increase its fiscal deficit target, despite speculations that more spending might be needed to appease coalition partners, a government official said. Modi's Bharatiya Janata Party failed to win an outright majority in elections that concluded on June 1st, though a secured third term with the support of 14 regional parties. Rating agencies and analysts have said the government may step up welfare spending as well as support for states represented by partners in the National Democratic Alliance. Two of the BJP's key allies, the TDP from the southern state of Andhra Pradesh and the JD from the northern state of Bihar, have demanded special financial assistance according to local media reports. In February, when announcing its interim budget, the government said a fiscal deficit strip. Israel and Hamas both repeated hardline positions that have undermined previous mediation to end the fighting, while Israel has pressed on with assaults in central and southern Gaza, among the bloodiest of the war. On Tuesday, however, senior Hamas official Sami Abu Zuhri, who is based outside Gaza, said it accepted the ceasefire resolution and was ready to negotiate over the details, but it was up to Washington to ensure that Israel abides by it, he added. He said Hamas accepted the formula stipulating the withdrawal of Israeli troops from Gaza and the swap of hostages held in Gaza for Palestinian prisoners jailed in Israel. The U.S. administration is facing a real test to carry out its commitment in compelling the occupation to immediately end the war in an implementation of the UN Security Council resolution, Abu Zuhri said. Blinken said the Hamas statement was a hopeful sign, but definitive word was still needed from the Hamas leadership inside Israeli besieged Gaza. That is what counts, and that is what we don't have yet. The war began when Hamas-led Palestinian militants stormed into southern Israel from Gaza on October 7, killing more than 1,200 people and seizing more than 250 as hostages, according to Israeli tallies. Israel's retaliatory air and ground blitz in Gaza has killed more than 37,000 Palestinians, the Gaza Health Ministry has said, and reduced most of the narrow coastal enclave to wasteland with malnutrition widespread. The UN Human Rights Office said on Tuesday the killings of civilians in Gaza during the Israeli operation to release 4 hostages and also armed groups holding of captives in densely populated areas could amount to war crimes. Precaution as set out under the laws of war were respected by the Israeli forces, Jeremy Lawrence, spokesperson for the UN Human Rights Office, said. Lawrence added that the holding of hostages in such densely populated areas by armed groups was putting the lives of Palestinian civilians as well as the hostages themselves at added risk from the hostilities. All these actions by both parties may amount to war crimes, he said. The conflict in Gaza was triggered when Hamas fighters charged into Israel on October 7 and killed some 1,200 people, according to Israeli tallies. Israel's subsequent bombardment and invasion of Gaza has killed more than 37,000 Palestinians, according to health authorities in the Hamas-run enclave. Gunmen took around 250 hostages back to Gaza on October 7, for more than 100 of whom were released, in exchange for about 240 Palestinians held in Israeli jails during a week-long truce in November. There are 116 hostages left in the coastal enclave, according to Israeli tallies, including at least 40 whom Israeli authorities have declared dead in absentia. He will also repeat his pledge to abolish the double tax on work when financially responsible to do so, a reference to scraping the national insurance payroll tax eventually. Former British pop singer Gary Glitter was on Tuesday ordered to pay a woman he sexually abused as a child more than £500,000 in damages. The 80-year-old, whose real name is Paul Gadd, shot to fame in the 1970s as a glam rock star before he was later repeatedly convicted and jailed for child sex crimes. Gadd was sentenced to 16 years in prison in 2015 after being found guilty of indecently assaulting 3 girls in the 1970s. One of those 3 victims, who said she was 12 when Gadd raped and sexually assaulted her, sued the singer at London's High Court for damages caused by the abuse. Judge Amanda Tibbles on Tuesday awarded the woman £508,800 in damages after a hearing in March at which Gadd was not present or represented by lawyers. The damages awarded to the woman, who is now 60 years old and cannot be named as a victim of sexual abuse, included £381,000 for loss of earnings. Gadd could not be reached for comment. Earlier this year, he lost a bid to be released from prison on parole. Gadd was first jailed in 2006 in the Eurozone's second-largest economy. A key target for both camps are the conservative Republicans, in power for decades, but now now a shadow of its former self. It has already lost key members to Macron's centrist party and the far right. Some now fear it could implode. RN President Jordan Bardella, who has already said he was trying to poach more LR members and could back some in the election, made his intentions clear. I'm calling on the Republicans to stop being Emmanuel Macron's political crutch. He said to press, if you have convictions, if you love your country, come and work alongside us. On the other side, Edouard Philippe, a former LR member and previous prime minister for Macron, called on